I guess if you're looking for a guy to make you pasta and red sauce, Scott Conan of New York City's Scarpetta would be that guy. He's traveled to Benevento, his family's home village in Italy, to experience firsthand the old-school methods he originally learned from his grandmother.
So what we have here is a pot of boiling salted water, and we're just going to blanch these tomatoes for a couple seconds, just in order to cook the outside so the skin can come off quickly. It's starting to come off already? Okay. So then what we do is I will peel this skin off. Now what we're going to do is we're going to squeeze these tomatoes because you just want to take the seeds and a little bit of that juice out. So we're just squeezing that out. And later, we'll strain out this juice and we'll use that in the sauce if it's necessary. Sometimes these tomatoes get a little bit dry. So now what we have is a very hot pan. We're going to add a little extra virgin olive oil to it. All these fresh tomatoes directly to the pan. A little pinch of salt. The salt really draws all the inherent juice out of those tomatoes, which this process for me is the most important step inside because I take a tomato masher or potato masher and I really try to break these tomatoes up as much as I can. So as that cooks for about 40 minutes in a separate pot, I'm going to add some extra virgin olive oil to this. We got about 2 cups of extra virgin olive oil here. I'm adding about 10 cloves of garlic and some very fresh basil directly to the soil. And I'm going to add a little bit of crushed red pepper as well. And I'm going to put this on the side on a low flame, and I'm going to let this cook until all that flavor is infused into the extra virgin olive oil. I don't want all these things kind of floating around in there. That's why I make this infusion. I think of that olive oil like a tea. What we're going to do is add this strained oil directly to the tomato sauce. And then we're going to stir it around so it's incorporated throughout. That's about 4.5 ounces of spaghetti. So I always like to go per portion with about 6 ounces of tomato sauce. Now the reason why I put it in a pan like this, I don't want it to reduce down in a pot like this, because then what happens is it gets a little bit too of that old-fashioned style tomato sauce like what my mother does. My mother's a great cook, and there's nothing against her tomato sauce, but I want this to be a little fresher. I love you, Mom. So I put it in a saute pan with a lot of surface area, so it'll reduce down quickly, but without sacrificing the freshness, the integrity of that tomato sauce, so to speak. So we add the spaghetti to this. We're going to let it cook for about 3 minutes or so. We'll cook it about 90% of the way in the water. Then we'll finish it in this saute pan. That way, there's a release of the starch that helps thicken the sauce. The pasta also acts like a sponge where it really absorbs all the flavor of the tomato sauce. And the third thing is with the oil that we add and the liquid and the starch, it creates a great emulsion which coats the pasta really well. And we're going to use a little of that water from the pasta cooker itself. In a lot of restaurants, they'll just take that liquidy tomato sauce and dump it over the top of a pasta. We really want to incorporate this sauce. We want to make it seem like this sauce is part of what this pasta is. I'll let that cook a little bit. I'm going to add another pinch of crushed red pepper and another touch of extra virgin olive oil as well. These nice fresh ingredients really add a lot of depth to the pasta. Now there's a reason why chefs always flip this stuff. There's an aeration process that takes place. I'm going to add a little bit of butter to this. And that's really going to help it with the creaminess, obviously. You're adding a lot of air, kind of packing air into this so it becomes a much lighter, creamier dish. I'm going to add a little bit of fresh basil to it also. Now, I've traveled around Italy quite a bit over the past 20 years or so. And I'll tell you, the only place that I've had a spaghetti similar to this was in my grandparents' hometown in Benevento. It's the only place that I had a spaghetti where I thought, that's exactly what I want. You get the basil as an upfront flavor. You get the acid of the tomatoes, but there's a nice sweetness. I think the butter helped mellow that out a little bit. Tony, I wish you were here sharing this with me, but I'm going to have to eat it myself, man. Enjoy.